What's up, everyone? This is Tom from One Chance Tactical. Today, what we're going to be talking about is the Elftmann SE trigger. Now, this is the second trigger that Elftmann has sent us out to play with for a little while. The first time we got our hands on those triggers, it was the Elftmann 3-gun and their match trigger. A lot of the things I had said about in that video, and I'll post a link in the description box below. A lot of those things that I had said about that trigger is definitely going to kind of carry over to the SE trigger, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That's a good thing. We're talking the SE trigger, we're talking about a unit that's $100 cheaper, and what I'm finding is having a lot of the same performance characteristics as a trigger that costs $100 more. Now, one thing to put out there, I'm starting to think that Elftmann is actually not a real person. I'm starting to wonder if it's an actual pseudonym. I think these triggers are actually made at the North Pole by little elves when the clock strikes 0001. And then they're putting on a C-130 and then just dropped over America. Because I have yet to get my hands on a single product from Elftmann that has just not been magically, wonderfully awesome. So with that, let's kind of get a little bit more of this SE trigger. This is a 2.3 ounce unit. It's a drop-in unit. It's made the exact same way as the rest of the Elftmann triggers. This one does not have the aircraft grade needle bearings. So some of the other ones, they have 15 needle rolling bearings that are sealed within the unit. This trigger does not have the needle bearings, nor does this trigger have a adjustable pull. Whereas on the match, the 3-gun or their service trigger, you can just crack the upper and lower receiver, and there's a little Allen key right on top, and you can adjust your trigger pull. This one's fixed right at 3.5 pounds. So we have a non-adjustable 3.5 pound pull. It's a really light 2.3 ounce drop-in. And all in all, it's been a great shooter. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at that. So here's the trigger itself. You can pick these up with a straight shoe like they sent me out, or you can get these guys with a curved bow. Really a couple of cool features about this trigger that I'm liking right off the bat, but let me show you guys the press, because I know that's what you guys actually care about. So pre-travel or take-up, whatever you wish to call it, is pretty minimal. It's actually really hard to even find. So I can feel it right now. I doubt you guys can see it. And break. Let's reset and show you what that looks like. Extremely short reset. It's very positive. So the unit itself actually wants to force the shoe forward after you actually take that shot. And break. Sorry for jerking that rifle around. And reset and break. So let's get into reliability and performance. Reliability, I have a little over 2K rounds on this. I normally keep a really good running log of types of ammo I've put through it, and like rounds down to the actual, like right around, kind of rounded up or down to the nearest 20th. All I've put through this gun since I've had this trigger was SS-109. So it's only been eating one type of ammo for about the past month, 2 months, month and a half ish, however long I've had this. And as far as reliability, I've had 0 light primer strikes, but again, I'm also using factory ammunition. So reliability to me gets a big old check in the box. I have no problem trusting this trigger. Big part of that reliability is definitely coming from the fact that their hammer spring is a .043 double polished piano wire, and it's super strong, which is also providing a really fast lock time. So obviously, again, reliability gets a big old check. Now, performance-wise, this is where I won't say it gets a ding, but I definitely, if you spend enough time at the range and you pay attention to how you're shooting with one specific thing versus another, you'll kind of start to get an understanding of what parts more or less better enable the particular technique that you use when you're behind your rifle. So kind of small comparison, their 3-gun trigger, my consistent splits that I was able to get was right around .11, .12. My occasional ace card would be a .10. A .10 split for me on a rifle is kind of like the golden standard. I wish I can do that every single string of fire that I took, but that's a very fast split time for me, and I most certainly can't do that all the time. So their 3-gun and their match trigger, consistent splits were .11, .12. This trigger, consistent splits, so the SE was right around the .12 to .13 mark, with my occasional ace card being .11. So I have a unit here that's $100 less, and I'm also running it 1/100th of a second or 2/100th of a second slower than I am their 3-gun. Is that a really big deal? To me, no, not really. I mean, it's a 100th of a second. It is time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still just 1/100th of a second. So I have not been able to run it as quick as I can run their 3-gun, but nonetheless, performance-wise, it's been giving me everything that I absolutely need. When working on precision, if I'm able to get a really nice steady position and I'm trying to take a shot, maybe past 300 yards, I'll typically run my entire hand on the outside of the pistol grip. When I'm running my hand here is normally where I can feel the trigger and I can feel the actual like intimacy of the trigger and exactly how much I can press it in before I'm on that razor's edge. I can tell you when I'm on this trigger and I'm actually starting to move it toward the rear, there is a very, very, very little bit of pre-travel. It is the most negligible amount of pre-travel, and it's actually quite hard to find unless you're really looking for it. So I actually dry fired this thing quite a bit just to kind of come really familiar with it before I actually took it out to the range. But the pre-travel that it does have, I will say that it's definitely offering you a very high degree of predictability once you get used to it. And again, the brake is super clean. It's super nice. The more and more you keep using this trigger, the more and more you'll kind of find that it kind of breaks in over time. So when this thing first got dropped into this rifle, and I first started kind of manipulating it, just doing dry fire and functions check and whatnot before I brought it out to the range, you can feel a difference between then and now. So the trigger actually kind of wore in, broke in, and actually got a little bit better over time. And as it sits right now, it's an extremely fast, intuitive trigger, and I'm absolutely loving it. For 169 bucks, this trigger is definitely geared towards someone who might be on a little bit more of a budget-oriented build. And that's the biggest thing that I really like about this trigger. I personally have no problem paying for quality. Some of the other Elftmann triggers, they are kind of expensive, but again, you are paying for the quality. You are paying for those aircraft needle bearings. You are paying for a trigger that more than likely has the most fastest lock time on any single trigger that can go in this particular rifle. Like, you are paying for an incredible trigger. Now this trigger here, the SE, is 169, whereas the others are 269. So for a price point of 169 and the performance that we're getting and what we can actually get out of the package for that price point, it's almost unbeatable. So again, for you guys that are a little bit on like a more of a budget-oriented mind, this thing can definitely make it where you can go elf yourself. So let's take a look a little bit more on some of the performance that I've been able to get on this on the range. So quick little recap, reliability's there. I find performance to be there. Price point, definitely there. This trigger, definitely, we won't find ourselves sleeping on the couch for a week or two, or nor will we probably have to go camp out by our mailbox to sneak gun parts in the house. Again, it's $169, and for what you're getting for a match trigger for that price point, it's just about unbeatable in that particular price range. This is Tom from One Chance Tactical. Thank you guys for watching. You guys stay safe.